I discussed in my acceptance video about how peer pressure is very strong. Acceptance, however, is just part of the reason why peer pressure is so ingrained into us. In a tribe, consensus and agreement were important, very important. If a tribe wasn't all headed in the same direction together, it could be easily divided. So we evolved an emotional positive when we all agreed on the same thing. Coming to an agreement feels like you just solved a puzzle or just found a new understanding in a fresh light, even if the agreement is completely unfair, such as the tricks con men use, making it seem as if you have both come to a mutual agreement when you have actually just agreed to what he wanted. Until recently, in fact, the individual was considered unimportant when compared to the cohesiveness of the community, to the point that John Locke in the 17th century was one of the first to postulate that perhaps not everyone was mentally and emotionally alike, and perhaps not all social norms or laws worked for everyone. This went completely counter to the current model, which assumed that we were all the same. From a limited view of the world they had during those times, and the fact that the majority went along with the crowd and kept silent if they disagreed as to prevent social discontent, it is easy to see why individuality would seem foreign to them. These days we are taught that individuality is so important, and we have the luxury to agree to disagree on almost any topic. Sadly, we are wired to feel connected emotionally, to the point that depression is the highest it's ever been, because our individuality sometimes makes us feel so isolated. Religious singing or chanting in unison is something that heightens this feeling of agreement, and religion takes full advantage of it, as we feel as if we agree on the same thing while it happens. Constantine did not actually care about the truth about Jesus when the Council of Nicaea was formed. He just cared about unity and agreement so that he could ferment his empire better. And many religious leaders at the council gave up some of their long-held beliefs, especially about the divinity of Christ, for the sake of unity. Each one came to the council, and after some discussion and a vote, God's church agreed in the Trinity after many of them had just believed he was just a man and became God in various other versions. All dictatorships are like this. They don't really care about the truth. They only care about everyone agreeing with each other, as they know the communal bonding would cause less discontent and easier brainwashing. There are still tribes where free love and infidelity is considered the norm, and jealousy and monogamy are looked down for the sake of tribal cohesion. When community is what matters over the individual, the majority wins at the expense of the minority. Agreement is everything, as it makes the majority feel good. Several people close to me have noticed and been a bit bewildered when I get flustered when they don't agree with me on a subject, especially after I've explained my position over and over. I thought it was because of my need to be right and a drive to proselytize, that is a leftover from religion. After thinking about it, though, I was never really driven to convert people to the point that I would get frustrated with them, and I really didn't feel the need to be right. I tend to be very open-minded and ready to change my views when I realize I am wrong on an issue. My problem is, I'm crashing from the agreement drug. I was raised with the feelings of always agreeing on the same thing, and it was addicting. In my family, because we were homeschooled, isolated, and fundamentalists, I obliviously believed we all agreed on the same things, until I got older, which was a letdown. The tenets of religion were something we all agreed on at my church, but as I got older I began to realize that they sure weren't acting on what they claimed to believe. It's possible that if I had continued under the delusion that everyone in my church believed as I did, I may have stayed in the religion. However, I was taught awareness, thinking, and a thirst for truth, which are all bad things if you want to stay in a fundamentalist religion. When you and another person agree with each other on so many issues, and you find out they don't on a particular issue, and can't convince them, it's an emotional crash, and your emotions may make things you disagree on seem a lot larger than all the things you do agree on. I find myself still wanting that feeling a lot, especially when it's from someone close to me. I find myself getting frustrated because I'm sure if I could just explain my point of view correctly, we would come to an agreement, which would make me feel happy and at peace. Just because someone feels accepted doesn't mean they feel agreement, which is not a big deal for me if I am not that close to them. But if it's someone close to me, it can cause withdrawals for me. Thanks to religion and homeschooling, the agree to disagree is really difficult with someone close to me, as it at times can make me feel distant from them until I can cool down. This is something that I have just recently discovered, and the awareness of it means that I will have to work on not being addicted to agreement, though it feels so good. Lack of agreement in the atheist community is something that confuses the religious to no end. They can't even begin to imagine being part of a community without a set of tenets or things everyone claims to believe. This is why they claim that atheism is a religion. They also claim that Eastern philosophy, like Buddhism and Taoism, were religions, even though they were very fragmented and free-thinking, because Christians could not fathom living without a lockstep system that everyone agreed on. Their need for agreement on issues causes them to fragment easily when a part of the group ends up disagreeing on an issue, and the crash from lack of agreement creates a false us versus them mentality. This is why there are so many denominations. At some point, the minority opinion got large enough that they all began to speak out, and since they no longer felt alone in their convictions, they finally felt like they were right, and the other group were the heretics. The atheist and freethinkers community have given up agreement for the sake of the search for truth, which can be very painful to some, but over time it will be worth the effort taken.